They said she didn't stand a chance. That was the first thing Captain Maya Singh heard when she stepped off the C-130 transport plane onto the sweltering tarmac of Naval Air Station North Island. The rumor mill, it seemed, was more efficient than the Navy's official communication channels. A female logistics officer, a pencil pusher from the Supply Corps, was being attached to SEAL Team 7 for a joint readiness exercise. It was unprecedented, and according to the whispers that followed her like a cloud of dust, it was a disaster waiting to happen. The man at the center of this particular storm was Commander Jason Raptor Hayes. He was a legend, even among legends. With 20 years of service, countless deployments to hot spots around the globe, and a chest full of medals that told stories of valor most couldn't fathom, he was the embodiment of the naval special warfare community. He was tall, with shoulders that seemed to strain the fabric of his desert camouflage uniform, a chiseled jaw perpetually set in a hard line, and eyes the color of a winter sea, cold, assessing, and utterly devoid of warmth for anyone he deemed unworthy. And he had already deemed Maya unworthy. Their first meeting was in the team's briefing room, a space dominated by maps, photographs of past missions, and the pungent smell of coffee, sweat, and gun oil. The air crackled with the unspoken hierarchy. Hayes stood at the front, arms crossed, as his 16 operators lounged in their chairs, a pride of lethal, well-oiled lions. Maya walked in, her uniform crisp, her black hair pulled back in a tight bun, a tablet clutched in her hand. She was shorter than most of the men, and her frame slender compared to their bulk. To them, she must have looked like a librarian who'd accidentally wandered onto a battlefield. Hayes didn't introduce her. He just looked at her, a flicker of something, amusement, disdain, she couldn't tell, crossing his face. "All right," he began, his voice a low gravel that commanded immediate attention. "We've got a new asset for this op. Captain Singh is from Supply. She's here to streamline our logistical chain." He said the last words as if they were a joke, and a few of the men chuckled. "She'll be observing our land navigation and close-quarters combat drills. Try not to break her." The laughter was louder this time. Maya felt the heat rise to her cheeks, but she forced herself to breathe. She stepped forward, her voice calm and clear in the sudden silence. "Commander Hayes, gentlemen, I'm not here to observe. I'm here to participate. The exercise involves a simulated capture of a high-value target in an urban environment. My role is to advise on the support structure needed to sustain a unit of your size behind enemy lines for an extended period. I can't do that from a desk." Hayes raised an eyebrow, a faint, cynical smile playing on his lips. "Participate. Right. Well, Captain, the first part of the exercise is a 12-mile ruck march through the Otay mountain terrain. Full kit. We leave in an hour. Hope your office chair has prepared you." It was a challenge, pure and simple, a gauntlet thrown down with the expectation she would trip over it. Maya simply nodded. "I'll be ready." An hour later, she stood at the starting point, a 40-pound rucksack on her back, her boots laced tight. The SEALs, looking like they were heading out for a Sunday stroll, barely glanced at her. Hayes gave the signal and they were off, a column of lethal efficiency, their pace brutal from the first step. The trail was unforgiving. It snaked up and down steep inclines, the ground a treacherous mix of loose shale and hard-packed dirt under the scorching California sun. Within the first 3 miles, Maya's shoulders were screaming, the straps of her pack digging deep grooves into her flesh. Her lungs burned as she fought for air, her legs feeling like lead. The SEALs, moving in a fluid, silent group, pulled further and further ahead. She was alone, the dust from their boots the only sign they'd been there. Doubt, heavy and suffocating, began to creep in. They were right. You don't belong here. She thought of her desk at the Pentagon, at the air conditioning, the predictable spreadsheets. What was she doing here, chasing ghosts in the hills? Her pace slowed to a stumbling walk. She saw Hayes up ahead, at a fork in the trail. He had stopped, waiting, not out of concern, she was sure, but to witness her failure up close. As she approached, he didn't offer water or encouragement. He just looked at her, his gaze sweeping over her flushed face and heaving chest, then shook his head slightly and turned, disappearing down the trail. That silent dismissal was worse than any insult. It was a verdict. Something hardened in Maya's chest then. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was a cold, stubborn resolve. She thought of her grandfather, a Gurkha soldier in the British Indian Army, a man of small stature but immense courage, who had taught her that resilience was not about size, but about the spirit. She thought of the women at the academy who had told her the combat track was a waste of time. She had spent her whole life proving people wrong. Why stop now? She adjusted her pack, took a deep breath that tasted of dust and defeat, and started moving again. She didn't try to catch them. She focused on the next step, and the next, one foot in front of the other. She found a rhythm, a painful, grinding cadence. She stopped thinking about her burning muscles and started thinking about her grandfather's stories, about the inhospitable terrain of the Himalayas, about men who carried heavier loads over greater distances. This was just a hill in California. She finished. Not first, not even close to the main group. She finished over an hour after the last SEAL had crossed the line. The medical staff rushed to her. But she waved them off, dropping to her knees in the dirt, her body shaking with exhaustion. Most of the team were already cleaning their gear, ignoring her. Hayes stood by a Humvee, talking to his second-in-command. He glanced her way, his expression unreadable. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His silence was a victory in itself. She had met his first challenge. She hadn't broken. Over the next 2 days, the silent treatment continued. During navigation exercises, she was given outdated maps. During weapons assembly drills, she was handed a malfunctioning rifle. They didn't sabotage her, not overtly. They simply ignored her existence, creating a vacuum of isolation. They spoke in acronyms and inside jokes, a language designed to exclude. Maya didn't complain. She watched, she learned, and she waited. She spent her nights studying the operational plans, cross-referencing them with supply databases on her tablet. She noticed things, a discrepancy in the projected fuel consumption for their vehicles, a critical shortage of a specific type of medical dressing in the pre-positioned supply caches, details that would seem minor to a trigger puller but were catastrophic to a logistician. The breaking point, for them, came on the 3rd day. The exercise scenario had shifted. Their simulated HVT was now in a heavily fortified compound. The SEALs had planned a dynamic entry, a classic kick-down-the-door-and-clear-the-rooms operation. They were in the middle of a dry run in a shoot house, a concrete building riddled with bullet holes and marked with spray paint. Hayes was in the middle of explaining the breach when Maya, who had been standing quietly in the corner, spoke up. "Commander Hayes, your plan has a 70% probability of failure." The room went dead silent. 16 heads swiveled towards her, a mixture of shock and outright hostility on their faces. Hayes slowly turned, his eyes narrowing dangerously. He walked towards her, his boots heavy on the concrete floor, stopping inches from her. The air thickened. He towered over her, a physical embodiment of intimidation. "I'm sorry, Captain," he said, his voice dangerously low. "I don't think I heard you correctly. You have a probability analysis for my plan?" Maya didn't flinch. She met his gaze, her own eyes steady. "The intelligence report states the HVT has a constant security detail of 12 men. Your plan calls for an 8-man breach team. You're relying on speed and surprise, as which are your greatest assets. But the supply manifest for that region shows the local militia was recently issued night vision goggles and personal radios. Your element of surprise is negated. They'll see you coming. They'll communicate your position. You'll be walking into a kill box." A heavy silence followed. One of the younger SEALs, a burly man with a shaved head, scoffed. "And where'd you get that info? From a cereal box?" Maya didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on Hayes. "From the shipping logs for the port of Djibouti dated 3 weeks ago. The same logs your intelligence section hasn't had time to analyze because they're focused on human intel. I analyzed them last night. The crates were marked as agricultural equipment, but the weight and dimensions match standard military shipments. They have night fighting capabilities now." She then turned to a table where their weapons and gear were laid out. She pointed to a specific type of magazine pouch on one of the vests. "And that's not all. Your resupply point for this phase of the exercise is coded Eagle's Nest. It's supposed to contain ammunition, water, and MREs. According to the last inventory update, which was sent to my tablet 2 hours ago, the water cache at Eagle's Nest was never filled. There are 48 one-gallon jugs of water listed in the manifest, but the GPS tracker on the supply pallet shows it's still at the main base motor pool. If you follow your current timeline, you'll reach Eagle's Nest after a 12-hour patrol, low on water, expecting a resupply. You'll find nothing but empty crates." The silence that followed was different. It was the silence of men who were suddenly, uncomfortably, reevaluating everything they thought they knew. Hayes stared at her, his jaw working. The cold amusement was gone, replaced by something else, something that looked a lot like calculation. He walked over to a field computer and pulled up the shipping logs she'd mentioned. He scrolled through them, his brow furrowed. He checked the inventory tracker for Eagle's Nest. His face, already hard, became granite. He turned back to the room. "Check your water." It was a low, dangerous command. The men scrambled, checking the levels in their hydration bladders. They were all good for now. "When were we planning on hitting Eagle's Nest?" Hayes asked, his second-in-command. 1300 tomorrow, the man replied. Hayes looked at Maya. That water would have run out around noon." He didn't say thank you. He didn't apologize. He just stared at her, a long, unblinking look as if he was truly seeing her for the first time. The next morning, the atmosphere in the camp had shifted. It was subtle, but it was there. The open hostility was gone, replaced by a curious, watchful silence. They still didn't talk to her much, but they no longer looked through her. They saw her. The final phase of the exercise was the culmination, a full-scale, force-on-force assault on a mock-up terrorist camp, using simulated ammunition, simunitions, that fired paint rounds. It was designed to be as realistic as possible. The enemy was played by a company of Marines, who were instructed to defend the camp aggressively. Hayes's plan, revised with Maya's intelligence, was a multi-pronged assault. His team would create a diversion at the main gate, drawing the defenders, while two other elements would breach the walls from the north and south. He assigned Maya to the command and control element, which would be positioned on a hill overlooking the camp, monitoring communications. It was a safe, sensible place for a logistics officer. As they were gearing up, Hayes walked over to her. He held out a radio headset. "You're with me." Maya blinked, surprised. "Sir?" "You heard the intel on their security rotations. It changes every 40 minutes. If our timing slips by 30 seconds, we lose the window. I need someone on the ground who can read the situation and make the call to hold or proceed based on the real-time tactical picture. You've proven you can see the details the rest of us miss. You're my insurance policy." He didn't wait for an answer. He just clipped the radio to her vest. "Stay close, stay quiet, and if you see something, you say something." It wasn't a vote of confidence. It was a field test, the ultimate trial. Maya felt a thrill of terror and excitement. She was being invited into their world, not as an observer, but as a participant. The assault began at dawn. The crack of simunitions fire was deafening. Hayes moved like a ghost, fast and silent, with Maya right behind him, her heart hammering against her ribs.